Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Summit, Strategic Finance in the Age of AI Automation. My name is Michael with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit the virtual booths from the main agenda page. These include complimentary materials and information. For those seeking CPE credit today, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and remain on the session for its duration. Polls can be found under the Polls tab. Afterwards, if you are eligible to receive credit, you will receive an email with a link to your certificates. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@argyleforum.com. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Also, be sure to subscribe to Argyle on YouTube for exclusive access to all our past events. And now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Philip Peck, Vice President, Advisory Services and Finance Transformation Practice with the Peloton Consulting Group. We're excited to have Philip and our panelists for a panel discussion titled, Building a Future-Ready Finance Team. Philip, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for joining the webinar here. I'm extremely excited to be moderating this session as the topic is highly relevant for finance and FP&A, the community in general. And we have 3 outstanding finance leaders here today. They're going to share their insights and wisdom throughout the panel discussion. Before we get started, just share a little bit more about my background, and then I'm going to have our 3 panelists introduce themselves. So as Michael said, I'm currently Vice President of Advisory Services and Finance Transformation for Peloton Consulting Group. Our company helps organizations drive AI-enabled digital transformation across their enterprise, where we provide advisory, consulting, and managed service capabilities across EPM, Enterprise Performance Management, ERP, Enterprise Resource Management, Supply Chain Management, Human Capital Management, CX, Customer Experience, Analytics, and Data Management for the cloud. Me personally, I've spent my entire career, 35 plus years in FP&A finance and related controllership domain areas, working in corporate roles and then pivoting to management consulting, where really I look to help organizations explore the art of the possible and adopt leading edge practices across the entirety of FP&A finance and controllership functions. I'd now like each of you to introduce yourselves. So Dheeraj, please go first.
Thank you, Philip. Hi, I'm Dheeraj Cherian. I run a consulting service, and my clients are global and mostly in the finance area. My background is as a CFO for over 20 years with some of the largest corporations out there. Funnily enough, some of them don't exist at the size they used to be, not because of AI, but just because of market forces where it is. I really enjoy bringing my skills and my past experiences with a lot of the clients who know me personally or who I've worked with in the past, to help them build their business, their growth, go into new markets, as well as upskilling their teams. And this is a very relevant topic, I think, and we can talk more about it. I look forward to this session. Thank you.
Thanks. Great to have you here, and I think your background will be highly beneficial when we dig into the questions. Shu, how about yourself?
Sure. My name is Shu Handrane. You can call me Shu. I have over 20 years corporate finance background, MBA and CFA. Fun fact about me, I actually have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, ended up in finance. This is my true love. I'm passionate about finance. And for the past 10 years, I served as finance executive for Fortune 500 companies, and most recently as CFO of PE firm. So excited to be here. Can't wait. It's going to be a fun discussion today. Going back to you, Philip.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shu. All right, Matt, let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Matt McFadden. I've got about a 20-year career now in various forms of regional and corporate FP&A. I've worked in national and global companies. I've worked in all facets of FP&A. I've led teams across all facets of FP&A and global profitability initiatives. I've had a wealth of experience trying to build and harmonize global data systems specific to financial reporting. And I've had a lot of cross-functional interaction. So the marriage of AI as a tool to help us in finance get better data, and then also how we have to build our teams to communicate as we continue to step into more of a partner function with the other departments in the company is a very, very engaging and challenging discussion to have. And I'm very excited to be here today.
Matt, awesome. So I think we're ready to dive in. For everyone in the audience here, a term I like to use on occasion, buckle up. Now the fun begins. So question one, and Matt, I'm going to have you start us off here. As automation takes more of the routine work off of our plates, what skills are you finding hardest to build or hire for right now within your finance team?
I think that there are two main skills that are challenging today, almost the same as they were 5-10 years ago. And those are, one, ensuring data integrity, and not just merely trusting every time what comes out of a system. There are instances where the data has a flaw, or inside of the data there's a one-off item that has to be understood. And then that flows through to the second skill set is to what to do with this data and how to analyze the data and interpret it and intuit the implications of the data. The numbers are the numbers, but behind every number is a story. And it is our job in finance to understand what made the numbers come out the way that they came out. What does that mean today? What does it mean for tomorrow? And then what can the company do about it? I don't want to be too negative, but a lot of times we think about what happens when the numbers are worse than we wanted them to be. How do we respond to that? And so part of the skill set is to try to teach the younger generations on how to think through all of the implications of what is inside of the data and how to carry that forward and offer that portfolio of options to our team members and cross-functional leaders so that they can make better decisions. I think that those are the two areas I find particularly challenging today.
So Matt, quick observation. I like how you've characterized that the more things change, the more they stay the same. So the secret sauce and those skills and the elements, if we broke those and decomposed all those, I certainly like how those are two fundamental pillars. The data centricity, the quality, the accuracy, the access, the lineage, the ownership, we could keep on going. But then the super set of skills around how do you analyze? How do you tell a story? How do you bring forth a perspective as a FP&A and finance practitioner to help the organization? This is what we've always needed, what we always seek, what we always tend to grow. So I think that's a fantastic anchoring point. Putting aside AI for a second, but it's here and now and has been and will be. Shu, do you have additional thoughts on this one?
Sure. Funny enough, as Matt mentioned about how important of data integrity, in my organization, I actually own data integrity. So the data leader reports to me. I guess because as a finance leaders, we emphasize that enough, we ended up owning it. How fun is that? So I actually learned a lot about data flow, system integration, so on and so forth. All very relevant. I think as we continue to evolve in today's business environment, we become more and more cross-functional leaders. So that's actually something that I'm passionate about as a topic. So I think one of the discussion points if we're going to ask later is on that. So I'm going to pause here, just say that I totally agree with Matt, and then that is a huge topic in itself.
Fantastic. Draj, anything else you'd want to add here on that?
It's interesting because Matt talked about the data, so did Shu about how that gets married. To me, and I've seen a lot of people working in my organization, in traditional roles. What I'm looking for, and I think what really needs to be done, is go back to your younger self, out of kindergarten, ask questions, inquisitiveness, right? The data is there. It's bad. You got to make it good. But how do you use it? And Matt talked about the analytics of it. But if you can't ask questions, if you can't come up with new ways to assess that, it's still going to be the traditional numbers, right? You can churn out the numbers, but you can't really give a story around it. And you talked about storytelling. That's very important. So really, that level of inquisitiveness, level of being willing to talk and network with others to build that story is very important. And not just to build a story, but to understand what are you looking at. And it's very important that we, see the numbers in where it came from, what it truly is. So often when we are focused on just doing our little bit of our work in our little world, and everyone outside has a broader view of the forest to the trees, right? And it's really hard to get them to come up and take a look at it. But again, we'll talk more about it surely, but how do we free them to be able to do that?
I think that's great. And those are really important observations. I love your go back to being a child and the inquisitive nature and the curious and questioning and asking and all that. That's just part and parcel to those skills we need. Launching then, I think that foundation is fantastic. Launching into our second question for all of you, and Shu, I'm going to have you take the lead on this one. How are you thinking about upskilling? And are you leaning more toward training existing talent or bringing in new skill sets from outside?
Well, on this, my philosophy has always been build where we can, buy where we must. Because we all know if we train internal talents to take on new responsibilities or bigger stage or broader responsibilities, it is not only more cost efficient, but also is a morale and team building and culture. There are many benefits from that. However, that doesn't always work. So there are three questions I typically ask myself and with other leaders weighing as well to determine whether we're gonna build internally or we're gonna secure some talents off the marketplace. So the first one is how urgent is this role needed? In quarters, in years, how urgent? And the second one is how critical this is for enterprise value creation. Economically, how we're finance folks, so we measure everything in values, in dollars, and this is no exception. And the third one is, do we have a clear internal path for anyone to take on the role? If the answer is yes, this is urgent, we need it in the relatively near term, and it is critical for value creation, and we also don't have a clear path internally how we get there, then the answer is we buy off the market. And once that decision is made, we hire someone externally. Typically, that means two things. One is that either is a step change, such as ERP implementation, such as data infrastructure, or that means a playbook we're buying off the market. For complex business models, global organizations, which George and Philip, you both mentioned about that, sometimes the pricing structure, the revenue management can be a very complex topic. So if the organization do not have the institutional knowledge, that may be worthy of considering buying off the market. Once we have an external hire coming into the team, that doesn't stop there. My goal has always been we have one or two external hires coming into the team, then we're gonna upskill the entire team, such as data literacy. How do we think about data? Finance is no longer just a culture of data. As I shared earlier, I actually own the data, so we're the owner of the data. It's a totally different mindset change. And that's typically how I manage end-to-end on this particular topic.
Fantastic. I think a takeaway definitely for myself, but I'm hoping the audience is soaking this up. The framework that you just laid out and those criteria, it's very, very intentional. Sense of urgency, critical for value creation, and is there an internal path to help you get there? Navigating those three dimensions as it relates to the fundamental question, fantastic framework. Draj, anything you want to comment here?
Yeah, well, I think you've really said it, Shu, but just thinking about it is you always want to bring in talent from the outside. It's just a matter of the life cycle or the career cycle of people. People are going to leave or want to move to some things. Others don't want to move into things, but the company's moving around you. You do want to try and train people internally, even if they're not there yet, simply because they know, at least we hope that they know more about the company, out the gate than anyone else. But the question comes when you're bringing in, are we ready for them? Are they ready for us? Right? If they come in with good ideas, will the rest of the team, and Shu, you talked about it briefly, everyone else needs to upskill. Well, it's harder to upskill a whole team than one person bringing in something new, right? So how do we do that transition? And if they come in and we want them to do things, but we don't have the systems or the tools or even just the mindset yet. As leaders, we do, but the rest of the team or the peers, if they don't have the mindset, you're probably going to have them leave within a week or just give up, as to, hey, I want to do this, but it doesn't look like you're there. So it's that entire ecosystem. How do we bring them in? How do we get them familiar, comfortable, and uncomfortable, for others to want to grow with them versus just putting up a block and saying, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to work with you. So training is important. Of course, comes down to budgets. Everybody wants everything from finance, but we get the least amount of money for all the money we manage, right? So everyone expects a lot of things. I've lived there, So the question is, how much can we concentrate into the team and capabilities that we have? So if we looked at purely finance and said, hey, we don't really need to bring any more, but we will make them super women and superman with tools and AI and everything else. Yes, but there is a little bit of a journey to get there, right? And we need to be able to help them. It does cost money. So getting someone in is important, I think, over time, not necessarily on day two, but you need to. But Shu, you mentioned buy where you must. Yes, sometimes we're just not ready for the next year or so. And you just have to get help from outside, including their tools and their insights, right? Of course, we have to give them the basic script and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, or tell us what should we be looking for. Sometimes even we don't know what we need to know. So I think it's a mix. I'm not trying to confuse everyone, but we do need people, but we try to bring as many people as are comfortable or make them comfortable internally to want to move to things that will be the change coming in. One of the things that I always tell my team, hey, it's like fishing on the banks of the Amazon, right? You can put a chair or put a permanent structure and fish. At some point, that river is going to change course. You'll still be fishing there, but there's no fish and no river. So you got to be watchful, see what things are changing around you, and be ready to move accordingly. If it was food on your table, you'd move. Why wouldn't you do that for your job and how that company is going to impact you?
Great pearls of wisdom. Two immediate takeaways I heard was there's always needs to be alignment to the overarching strategic objectives of the organization, and then specifically the finance and the FP&A organization. So that shapes and guides everything you do. And your last point is just really from a human element, the adaptability and flexibility. That just has to be part of our DNA. Matt, they've covered a lot of ground, so you might go, wow, that exhausts the world, but any other thoughts from yourself?
No, I think Shu laid out a really wonderful framework around build where you can and buy where you must. And Diraj brought up a very great point that I agree with, that you go external based on the skill need and the time you have to get to that skill need. And a lot of times that happens at more senior levels where you need impact almost from day one. So you need somebody to come in with enough previous experience on how to think through the implications of data to be able to kind of hit the ground running. That said, I am a huge fan of build from within and teach from within. And I want to go back to what I think Diraj hit on a huge word that in terms of upskilling and what kind of carry forward skills that we all need to broaden in. When he said curiosity, and his analogy of going back to when you were a child, I love it so much because it was, you have to ask why. So you think about when your children are small, and they're always going, why, to ask the question of trying to ask you why. And you want to get them to the point where they start to intuitively understand the why. And that, as Diraj said, that is a journey. That is a years-long process of living day to day in a company and seeing and experiencing enough things that go bump in the night across time. And so I have loved to invest in the teams we have because I want them to get there. And then only where, I say only as if it doesn't happen all the time, but only where you have that sort of that intersection of short time frame and big impact need at hitting each other is where a lot of times you need to just go external for things. But no, I don't really have much more else to add. I think Shu and Diraj did a fantastic job explaining that one.
Matt, if I may, one of the things when I mentioned that in a previous company that I was in, what I did was change that. We created a no fear, space or culture, and asked them, even though there's no real rule to it, is 3 whys, right? Ask why, then ask why, then ask why again, right? You kind of get to some semblance of clarity versus just why once, and you don't really get the answer at that point.
Absolutely.
Fantastic perspectives. I'm soaking all this up and I'm smiling a lot because I'm hopeful that all the participants are going, wow, I'm writing this down or taking notes or going back to their organization and using all of this. Let's pivot just a bit in the next question and building upon what we've already talked about. What changes have you made or might be considering to traditional finance roles to better support more strategic cross-functional work? And Shu, I'm going to ask you to kick us off and then we'll delve in further.
Sure. So any organization I walk in, I always say that finance is not a reporting function, it's an embedded operator function. And that doesn't mean just structurally, that actually means the value creation piece. So what does that mean? I typically have the framework. I love framework in case you guys haven't noticed. So the 5 following areas. So number 1 for FP&A, not just sitting in on monthly review meetings. The finance function I run, FP&A sits with sales, with ops, with supply chain, procurement, and they embedded on a daily basis. Minimum frequency is weekly meeting. They will be a big participant and a contributor. So they actually understand how each of the operating functions run. And that will greatly increase their value creation proposals and then to help the business leaders make better decisions, and they co-own that. For controllership, I actually always challenge controller no longer just reporting on the month's end of the close, but looking into the future, such as how the month's going to shake up for the next month. And then cost management, working capital, so on and so forth, the things that are close to controllership. And for, like I just mentioned that I own data. So I like to create the hybrid roles such as finance and data, like how they see the KPIs being defined, how the data goes in. This goes back to Mac, Diraj, and Philip. We talk about data integrity. This is a huge part of it. That what data goes in, how do you define KPIs, data pipelines, and then dashboarding. That's the final product. So on and so forth. And the fourth area is reduction, efficiency. We have limited amount of time, and Diraj said very powerfully and beautifully that finance gets the least amount of budget for what we do, for all the money we manage. So we don't have a very large team. We have limited amount of hours. We need to make it the most impactful. ROI is our mantra. So any report do not support decision making, then we're going to deprioritize that. That will free us up for more important things, such as scenario analysis, decision-making analysis, so on and so forth. And the fifth, last but not least, this is actually very important, is the incentive. So the finance function, I always walk into any organization and advocate finance leaders and finance professionals should be rewarded of the business results, not just the accuracy, not just the traditional reporting, but business results. And that's make it holistic. That is how I think about finance function, and that's how I help any organizations to create value and build a brand for finance function.
Wow. I love your mindset and mantra of you have a framework for virtually everything. That's what I'm guessing. And working backwards real quick, aligning the activities, our goals, our mission as FP&A and finance practitioners, aligning that to the overarching strategic, where are we going as the business and what are we trying to achieve? Then syncing up, as you suggested, incentives to, at the end of the day, FP&A finance, broadly speaking, they should be adding value. How do they add value? They help the organization make better decisions that presumably drives better business results. So I think I love that one, and obviously love your framework. Matt, curious your thoughts on what Shu presented and other thoughts you may have.
Reporting function for a long time now. Our job, a huge part of our job is financial fluency, and that is understanding and being able to translate the data to people who are not numbers people, sales teams, marketing teams, operations teams. Well, not operations is usually numbers, but maybe not financial numbers. I like to focus on keeping things simple. And as Shu said, we're trying to add value. We can easily overwhelm the organization with numbers and spreadsheets and too many columns and rows of data. But at the end of the day, you can keep it simple for the company because there's really three things that they can control. You can control the amount of revenue that comes in. You can control the margin on that revenue at a product or project level, and you can control your fixed costs. So if you start with that framework, or that's my framework at least, I don't have as many as Shu, I'm sure, but I like to tell the people I work with, like, there's three buckets to think about: revenue, the margin on it, and the fixed costs. And then you can work backwards monthly to go, is there an issue with the fixed cost? No, then forget about it. Everything's good. Is there something on the margin that's wrong? Yes or no. And then if there's a volume issue, and then beyond that, even though there are thousands and millions of data points coming through a company at any one time, for any one part of the organization, there's usually 3 to 5 impacts in a month. And those tend to recur. Every company has their top 10, 15 customers or large accounts that will drive the majority of the impact. And so I like to try to get my partners to focus on as few buckets as possible and just stay there so they can know where to attack. And so, my job is to go to my partners and say, I understand you have to cover the whole eastern half of the US. Focus on this one particular area. Everything else is working fine. Don't try to spread yourself too thin. Here's where we can go. And back to the value add part, it is our job, in my opinion, to help get the leaders to not have to boil the ocean time after time after time, but to be able to focus their energies on what needs to be resolved. And then along the way, we always do our constant analyses to see if there's new areas to focus on. But again, it's trying to keep it as simple as possible for the cross-functional partners, so that they're never overwhelmed with the data that we're providing them.
Matt, fantastic perspective. And listening, there's themes that just pop out there. There's, in some way, shape, or form, it's focusing on the critical few themes thematically and prioritize, laser focus on those areas where you either see opportunity, you see risk, or things are deviating from your set of expectations, and lock and load there such that we as the business partners, FP&A and finance, can enable our leaders accelerate their ability to focus on, whether it's operationally or cross-functionally, things that will make a difference and matter. So to your point on being that partner, if something, pick on fixed costs, if it's not moving, it's not that relevant, it's not that material, that's not where you spend your time at all. You spend your time on the much more strategic things. Duraj, anything you want to add here?
No, not really a lot. Just it's more vocabulary. I'd say it's finance. Initially, it depends on your journey within the organization to that cross-functional work. Initially, it may be more of infiltrate, right? Really to get into the other departments, other business points, to really be nosy and understand what they're doing, assimilate. As much as you get in there, you want to understand what they do and then educate, right? I mean, when I say educate, it's not about, hey, look at this. This is a capital structure. This is your, cash flow. This is your WAC. Doesn't mean anything to them. So how do you translate it into something they understand so they're even willing to listen to you? Because remember, what are you turning it all out for? I mean, you have your internal customers, which is your partners within all the other departments on that business chain, and then external parties. But you work with, your peers across the business every day. They provide information, they need information, or they can use that information, they just don't know it yet. So it's important to educate. I mean, I remember back in one of my companies in Westinghouse, globally, we had our treasury team go out and teach them about what they do. Now you can imagine treasury is about as technical as you can get, and even finance doesn't want to talk to them, right? Just show me the money when I need it. So it's about showing, hey, here, when you say you commit to something and in a certain currency across cross-border, or to a certain point at a tax rate, here's what happens. How much cash comes in? We can have so much ready at certain times. We trade, we hedge, right? So it helps them understand the impact of what they do and what treasury does for them. Doesn't mean that they all become treasury experts. Funnily, few of them did. They started talking treasuries, but beyond that, they are a little bit more aware and more considerate when they come to saying, okay, I need this. What do we have? When can we move with it? Versus, hey, why isn't it ready? Right? Or write a check without knowing if you had money in the bank. So these are things that we can actually work with the teams. It's good for us. It's good for them because they don't get surprises either. Because when it comes full circle, they have to come back and report to you and me, who are, leaders in finance, as to, we ask them a question at the management meeting, what are you doing? And they need to be able to not to have to come to that point or be ready to respond to that along with finance versus being butting heads.
Something that you clearly highlighted here, and I'll just bring it right back in front. We need to speak as finance and FP&A practitioners in a language that is understood and internalized by all of the stakeholders we work with, at the end of the day, we're still going to have those overarching super set of KPIs and metrics, but we need to help them appreciate their actions day to day, week to week, month to month, over a long-term planning horizon. Those drive all those financial results. So speaking in a language, in a taxonomy that makes sense to them, we can be the liaisons, we can be the translators. We in FP&A and finance, we're at the hub of everything. Presumably, we talked about the skills. We're the ones who actually have spent the time to really learn the business value chain, and then we translate that into financial outcomes and things, but we get it and we help them appreciate how their actions and operational activities then translate and do different things. That's great. I'm going to pivot here, given the remaining amount of time, and move forward to one question we've been hinting at, but I think we'll put it front and center here, and hopefully the audience is thinking, yeah, when are we going to get to this dynamic? And Matt, I'm going to have you kick us off on this one. In your experience, what's been the biggest challenge in shifting finance from a traditional reporting function to be a true indispensable business partner?
I think one, you hit on it just now, which is internally and within finance, learning how to translate our language to the rest of the organization in their languages. And I've always said, like, they don't have to learn finance. We have to learn their languages and speak to them in their languages. I think that has been that is a big challenge for finance. And then it is balancing that push-pull dynamic of do you try to force finance in the door, or do you try to serve the company in a way that gets them to pull you into the room? And if you can get the organization to pull you in, that is far better, and it leads to far more collaborative interactions, in my experience, than if we're trying to constantly inject ourselves into teams and groups and meetings where it seems as if we're just kind of always the annoying, non-invited party guest. So I think it's finding that, providing the value in a service-oriented way that shows the cross-functional partners why we are valuable, so that they want to have more from us and they will pull us in. That, to me, balancing that and kind of getting over the hill of getting the organization to pull you in can be a big challenge.
Absolutely. There's the concept, and we probably talked about this in the webinars before, Matt, you have to earn the right as an FP&A and a finance practitioner to have a seat at that table. And in that journey, depending on where your organization is and relative maturity or how you've evolved over time, sometimes you need some W's. You need some quick victories to say, oh my gosh, wow, Matt's team, that value they added in that analysis, that business case, that we're going to move into a new market, that was extraordinarily valuable. We need more. So being able to open up the spigot, and that's the gift and the curse, because then I think we hit at earlier, then how do you eliminate all the noise and the things that are lower value added activities, but in some way, shape, or form you still have to do, such that you can spend more time adding the value. Hey, Shu, I'd love to hear your thoughts here based on what Matt teed up.
Yeah, I got a bit surprised on this. I have my own framework about how to get finance.
I'm shocked.
Get finance in the door. So the way that I typically manage, particularly on this front, is we offer to co-own the obligations, the burdens, and you can call it targets, you can call it goals. We don't just leave it to other functions. Finance come in as a co-owners. So we share this victory and we share all the learnings opportunities as well. That's how we aligned on the interest front. So once we are aiming for the same thing, which is ultimately support enterprise goals, targets, so on and so forth, then we can align on processes, meaning that if we co-own the outcome, then let's think about how do we work best together. And that is typically how I can persuade business leaders to let finance truly get in the door, not just at the meetings of discussion for decisions and finance present data, but the sausage making. What happened in the marketplace? What recent development of the dynamics force us to do, and why did we do it? What is the current development of that dynamic? So on and so forth. That's the process. And the last one is because I own the finance function, I typically will align the roles and responsibilities and the capabilities to suit it for that, regardless of how the team set up to begin with. I always align finance function, even as of roles and responsibilities, to support the goals and objectives of the organization. With that, we'll also that finance on the tracking of the progress. So we have suggest to do, say, that reduce rebates of the revenue management. What did we propose? What was the outcome? We keep tracking that, and we keep tracking, do we win in the marketplace? What lessons learned? So on and so forth. So over time, we're truly being seen as part of the team, and they understand finance is not there to point fingers. Finance is there to co-own of everything that we have together. We win together, we learn together. And that's how I typically think about that.
I love that. And I especially love the last element. I'm remembering working with a client, and we're in a somewhat contentious meeting. It's somewhat contentious, but the individual, senior VP of both FP&A and Treasury, said, I care so much about this organization. I care about their success. I care about the people. I care about the longevity. Everyone needs to step up. Everyone needs to collaborate. We're in it together. And it was like this intensity where you want to do a run up the hill with the flag, Mel Gibson or somebody, but it's kind of a metaphor there. We are in this together to make it better. Before I open it up for Q&A, any quick thoughts, Diraj? Or
Yeah, I think you've covered a lot of it. I think working with other peer groups, it's also showing right from leadership onwards, right? I mean, just getting out there, working with them. I remember going to a factory setting, our factory in Mexico, and being part of a Six Sigma Kanban team, changing something on the process. Nothing to do with finance, but it shows, that as much as I loved it, I want my team to do something similar, because I embed people in floor meetings where you have gates, on different processes. So there is dialogue at the very offset that, hey, you're doing this is going to be delayed. Okay, this is what it's going to translate to when I have the report, or helping them do some of the analytics with their team, with engineering teams, right? Engineers actually sitting with the analysts who are embedded in their teams to help them work with it. So what you are showing is, as Shu mentioned and Matt did too, it's you're part of their team as much as they're part of yours, and not entirely that I, as a finance person, is going to design something that fits engineering. Shu might, but I wouldn't. At the same time, I understand their language. They understand my needs and what I'm saying, and we're in lockstep. And there are very few surprises at that point. There are going to be, areas of discontent because I need a number. They need to do their job, but at least where we all stand, and you're working towards a common goal, and that is very important. So I think from a finance perspective, it's leading that team into, no, you're not at your desk in your section of the office doing your thing. You want to and I always make it a point. You want to explain something to me? Tell me what they did in order for you to show me this number. And initially it's a struggle, but over time I facilitated for them, and slowly they actually are sitting more often in the the other departments and the other functions, factories, understanding their work, and they spend less time under my watch, so they know more about things as to how it's coming about. I think just to touch on that point is really we are the keepers of data, but it's all downstream, right? What crap comes upstream, you just see it when it's finally in your hand. How are you going to unpack that? You need to know that up front, and you need to, just like environmentally friendly policies, help them unwind it, keep it straightforward, keep it clean, so we all understand the whole process through the whole flow. And that's important, because by the time you get it at close and you open it, you have 3 days to explain stuff. What are we going to explain? Now that's where this AI comes in, because hopefully upstream data is set, clean or unclean, at least it's set to a certain parameter. So we're talking the same thing, but we need to teach these tools. And we've been doing this. I think over time, we are the best modelers out there, right? We take multiple pieces of data and do it, maybe manually, maybe pulling libraries out of Gartner or other places. And I've been doing that, right, across the board. Analytics, FP&A, as Matt mentioned, looking out and saying, hey, what am I doing? Do I go bottom up, top down, or somewhere in the middle? But either way, I need that story to fit. And I make it clear that my team or the other teams are not in a scary situation where they can't say no. You can say no, but you need to explain why, or what is capable, what you're capable of. Not in the safety zone, but a little better. So pulling all this data, working with it, we're really in that sweet spot. Whether AI comes or not, we're already there. And AI is not going to take your job, or it shouldn't, because end of the day, we have to tell it what to do. Otherwise, AI is a hallucination, right? Where there are gaps, it'll fill anything and everything, and we get stuck with it. Sorry, I went a little on a tangent, but
I think it's important, perfectly fine,
given the overarching theme of what we're talking about.
So we are coming up on time here, and I know we started just a minute or two late. So I do want to address one question, because I think it's a really good wrapper, and I'm glad someone posed this question. And Matt, I'll put you on the spot to give us a reasonably quick answer and make sure we stay to the overall forum schedule. When we talk about a future-ready finance team, what are the most important capabilities you're prioritizing today? Technical skills, business acumen, or something else?
Yes, both technical skills and business acumen. I would say, if I want to boil it down, it is data enrichment and getting more invested from a financial team standpoint in data enrichment. And then, and Dheeraj just laid it out perfectly, which is there's top down, there's bottom up, there's in the middle, and it is your job in finance to live in all of those worlds and ones beyond it. So it is continue to be curious and ask why. Get your data clean, and then ask a million questions about the data so that you understand it.
Love it. Love it. And I think as we've gone through all of these questions and we've navigated in the ebb and flow of all the responses, I think, Matt, we started kind of at the beginning with you going, yes, all. And at the end, you're kind of wrapping it up going, the future ready finance team, you may prioritize or deprioritize certain things as we're becoming even that much more essential as a strategic business partner. But the secret sauce, what makes us so good in the world of FP&A and finance, that per se hasn't changed. We're just amplifying the things that we need to do exceedingly well. And now augmenting us with our partner next to us, AI, to make it smoother, easier, more automated, but still delivering extraordinary value for the organization. With that, I think we're coming to the end. Thank you so much, the three of you, for your insights, all of your shared experiences, and a lot of wisdom. Love the frameworks throughout today's discussion. I know I picked up on gems and takeaways that I'll certainly be using in my line of work, but hopefully all the participants have as well. Thanks to all the participants who joined the session. Certainly have a great day. Michael, back to you.
Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you all for such a wonderful panel discussion today. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. Now, this session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Our next session will begin at 12:30, which will be a thought leadership titled The Role of Enterprise SaaS in the Era of AI. Please remain on the stage, and the next session will begin automatically. We look forward to seeing you there. Shu, Diraj, Matt, and Philip, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.